how to understand the equivalence between fractions, decimals and percentages. So I have a set of blank 100 squares here to help me. So we're going to look at one at a time. Let's just cover up the ones we don't need to focus on at the moment. So looking at this top 100 square, there are 100 small pieces in total. Okay, so 100 small pieces. So if I shade this amount, I have shaded 10, 22. 22 small squares out of 100. That would be one way to write the fraction. I have shaded no whole sets, but I have shaded 22 small pieces. The whole amount for a percentage is 100 pieces, so I have shaded 22% of the entire square. 22 100ths is the same as, is equal to 0.22, which is equal to 22%. That is one example of an image, a fraction, a decimal and a percentage that all have the same value. Let's take a look at another example. If I were to shade 25 this time, One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 25 squares out of 100 squares have been shaded. No whole sets of squares have been shaded, but 25 individual squares. That's the same as 25% of the shape being shaded. I know something about the relationship between 25 and 100. If I block out the section that I have shaded, I know that that section could fit in 4 equal times. So I could shade it again here, 5, 10, 20. If I block out this section here, that's another 25 in there. Then I could shade the same amount again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's another 25, leaving me with this section here, which is another 25. So they've kind of chopped and changed upside down, but they are all of equal size, 25 small squares in each of these. There are 4 equal groups and 1 is shaded. So 25 out of 100 is the same as 1 out of 4. 1 piece out of 4 pieces. 25 100ths is equivalent to a quarter, which means a quarter is also equivalent to 0.25, which is also equivalent to 25%, which is why we often make the link between 25% and 1/4 of an amount being the same. Let's take a look at another one. If I were to shade 50 of these squares, okay, I have shaded 50 out of 100 squares. I've shaded no whole groups, but 50 small squares, which means I have shaded 50%. If I look at this image, I notice that the same amount of squares are shaded as unshaded. There are 2 equal groups and 1 of them has been shaded. So 50 100ths is equivalent to 1/2, which means 1/2 is the same as 0.5 because when we've only got zeros continuing after decimal points, they could go on infinitely. We don't actually have to write them down. 0.50 is the same as 0.5, which is the same as 50%, which helps us to understand why we're expected to know the relationship between 50% and 1/2 being exactly the same. This helps us to see 1/2 and 50% and why they link together. Okay, let's take a look at something that is often confused when doing this task. So here is 0.50 or 0.5. Now I'm going to shade 5 tiny squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is written as 5 shaded out of 100, which is the same as no whole groups, no full groups of 10, but 5 tiny squares, which is 5%. This helps us to avoid confusion between 0.5 and 0.05. It helps us to avoid confusion between 50% and 5%, because here we can quite clearly see the difference in value between 50% and 5%. 0.5, 0.05. No full tens. That's what that 0 indicates. Okay, so here are examples of fractions, decimals and percentages as equivalents represented.